They say you never really know someone until money gets involved. Or maybe you do know them, but you're just too blinded by love to see the truth. My name's Trevor. I'm 34. I run a small but thriving auto repair shop I built from scratch with nothing but a rusted-out garage, a dream, and a ridiculous amount of elbow grease. I'm not flashy. Never have been. I drive a modest truck, wear old boots until the soles flap like dog tongues, and believe in things like loyalty, second chances, and keeping your word. That last one. Turns out it's a rare trait these days, especially in my wife's family. Maya, my soon-to-be ex-wife, is 32. When we met, she was working the front desk at a dental clinic. I was fixing up a beat-up 67 Mustang for a client across the street. We got coffee once, then again, and somehow that turned into nights on the porch, her in one of my hoodies, sipping wine and asking about carburetors like she actually cared. I fell hard. We got married after 2 years. I thought I hit the jackpot. Smart, witty, easy on the eyes, and she laughed at my dad jokes even when I knew they were terrible. But if I could go back, I'd pay more attention to the look her mother gave me during the engagement party. Like I was a weed that sprouted in her manicured garden. Maya's family has money. Not billionaire yacht club money, but enough to make a middle-class guy like me feel like I had to explain myself every time I bought off-brand cereal. Her dad is a retired corporate lawyer, sharp as a blade and twice as cold. Her mom is the kind of woman who casually mentions other people's salaries at dinner, just loud enough to make you feel underdressed in your own skin. From the beginning, they didn't think I was good enough. And to be fair, I didn't come from much. My dad was a mechanic, too. He taught me everything I know. He passed when I was 23, and I took over the business with nothing but a few loyal clients and a bank account that might have had $300 in it on a good week. I remember the prenup conversation like it happened 5 minutes ago. Her dad sat us down before the wedding, cleared his throat, and said something like, "This isn't personal, Trevor, just a standard agreement to protect Maya's interests." Maya smiled awkwardly, like she didn't want to do it but was too used to doing what her parents said. I agreed to it. I didn't have anything worth protecting anyway. But I read every word, and I added one clause. Just one. If either party commits adultery, it said, they forfeit all claims to marital assets. Her dad raised an eyebrow but didn't object. Fair is fair, he said. I signed. So did she. We got married the next week in a vineyard her parents paid for, with white chairs, a string quartet, and a guest list that was 70% their friends and 30% mine. For the first couple years, it was good. Simple. Maya helped out with the books at the shop sometimes, and I let her redesign the waiting room with those awful minimalist chairs that look cool but feel like sitting on plywood. We didn't have a lavish lifestyle, but we had each other. Or at least I thought we did. Looking back, there were signs. Little things. The way she'd roll her eyes when I talked about expanding the business. How she stopped inviting me to her office parties. How she always picked dinner spots where she could run into her friends with trust funds and private chefs. But I brushed it off. I was building something real, and I thought she saw that. Then came the lottery win. We weren't struggling, but we weren't rolling in it either. I was at the gas station after closing up shop late one Friday, dirty hands, oil-stained jeans, and for some reason, I grabbed a scratch-off ticket. I don't even know why. I wasn't the type. But I won. $9 million. Just like that. I stood there in front of the convenience store with the ticket in my hand, blinking at it like it might disappear if I stared too hard. When I told Maya, she screamed, jumped into my arms, kissed me like we were in some rom-com finale. We celebrated, drank champagne that probably cost more than my first car. She told me everything would change. She wasn't lying. First thing Monday, she called a financial advisor. Not for us, for her. She started spending like the money was hers alone. A new BMW, a ridiculous handbag with a waiting list. And she started disappearing more, long lunches, girl trips, spa weekends. At first, I chalked it up to the excitement. Maybe she just needed time to adjust. But it wasn't excitement. It was distance. Cold, calculated distance. The moment that really broke the illusion came one night, maybe a month after the win. I was on the porch with a beer, watching the sun drop behind the neighbor's fence. Maya came out, stood in front of me, arms crossed like she was bracing for a storm. "Trevor," she said, voice flat, "I don't think I need you anymore." Just like that. No fight. No tears. Just a clean break. "I'm filing for divorce," she added. "But don't worry. I'll be fair. Fair. The word rattled around in my head like a loose bolt. She said she wanted half. Half the house, half the cars, half the shop. It's not personal, she said, echoing her father like a ghost. It's just what I'm owed. That's when I remembered the prenup. The clause. The one her father had no issue with because he never thought his perfect daughter could possibly do something like that. But I had my suspicions. And I had receipts. Not literal ones. Not yet. But I'd seen enough late-night texts. Enough hushed phone calls. Enough weirdly timed meetings. I didn't want to believe it, but something inside me had already started to harden. To prepare. So I looked her in the eyes and said, "You sure you never cheated on me?" She laughed. Laughed. Like I had told a joke. "Don't be pathetic, Trevor." But I just smiled and replied, "Are you sure about that?" And that's when her face changed. Just a flicker. A tiny crack in the porcelain mask. But I saw it. I saw everything I needed. And that was the moment I stopped being the guy who fixed cars for a living and started planning my revenge. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of Maya's soft breathing beside me, like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't just told me she didn't need me anymore and wanted half of everything I worked for. I watched her silhouette in the dark, and something inside me cracked. Not with rage, not even with sadness, but with this cold, steady resolve I'd never felt before. It was like watching a house you built brick by brick catch fire, and instead of running for water, you just sit on the curb and light a cigarette. The next morning, I got up before dawn and went to the shop. I didn't even shower. I just needed to be around something real. Grease. Tools. That comforting clank of metal on metal. I stared at the dusty photo of my dad on the wall for a while. He was holding a wrench and smiling like he didn't have a care in the world, grease all over his hands. "She thinks it's hers," I muttered. Like I didn't bleed to make this place what it is. I shook my head and got to work. But even as I fixed a client's busted axle, my mind was already putting the pieces together. I needed proof. Real proof. I wasn't going to accuse her of cheating unless I could back it up with something that would hold in court. So I did the thing I swore I'd never do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Doug, and he looked like a guy who'd been on the losing end of too many bar fights and still enjoyed them anyway. Thick neck, eyes like a hawk, and a no-nonsense attitude. He listened to my story with a slight squint and said, "You're not the first guy to get blindsided by a pretty face. You got money now. That changes people." I gave him everything I had. Dates, names of Maya's coworkers, phone numbers I'd seen pop up on her screen. He nodded, took notes, and said he'd get back to me. I didn't tell Maya. I played it cool. Pretended like I was processing the divorce talk, like I was being mature about the whole thing. She seemed relieved, almost smug, like she'd expected a fight and got a handshake instead. Over the next 2 weeks, things got weirdly civil. We ate dinner at the same table, but barely talked. She started sleeping in the guest room. Her parents called constantly, asking about how we'd be splitting things. Not if, how. Her mom even had the nerve to say, "Don't worry, Trevor, we'll make sure you land on your feet." Like I was the one being dragged out by the collar. Then the real insult came. One Thursday afternoon, I got back to the shop from a parts run and found her parents in my office, sitting in my chair, sipping the good coffee I kept in the back. Maya was with them, all smiles like this was some kind of intervention. "We just want to talk," her dad said. "There's no reason to be difficult." I stared at them, stunned. "You broke into my business to talk about my divorce?" I asked. "It's not breaking in," Maya said quickly. "I have a key." "Not anymore," I snapped. "Hand it over." Her mom gave me this pitying look, like I was a wounded dog growling over a scrap. "Trevor," she said slowly, "we know this is hard for you. But Maya deserves a fair settlement. She gave you the best years of her life." I laughed. I actually laughed. She gave me what exactly? A redesigned waiting room and a few Excel spreadsheets? You want half my business for that. She supported your dream, her dad said stiffly. And she's entitled to her share of the lifestyle she helped build. I walked to the door, opened it, and pointed. "Out. Now." Maya looked startled. Her parents looked offended. "We're trying to be civil," her mom hissed. "And I'm trying not to lose my temper," I said. "Leave. And Maya, your key. Now." She dropped it on the desk with a smirk and walked out without another word. That was the moment the line was drawn. Whatever hope I had of this being a misunderstanding or a heat-of-the-moment thing, gone. They weren't just trying to take my money. They were trying to erase me, treat me like some bumpkin she'd outgrown. And I'll admit it, my hands shook after they left. My dad's photo stared at me from the wall like he was waiting for me to stand up. I didn't have to wait long. Doug called the next night. "You might want to sit down," he said. "I've got photos. Lots of them." Turns out Maya had been seeing someone. A guy named Greg, mid-30s, worked in finance, drove a Tesla. They'd been spotted together at least 6 times over the last 3 weeks. Fancy lunches, hotel bar, one night at a spa resort just outside town. Doug even got a blurry photo of them kissing in the parking lot, right before she got into her BMW. "You want timestamps?" he asked. "Receipts?" I got M. I stared at the phone for a long time. "Can you get me more?" I asked. "Buddy," he said, "I already did." He sent everything to a secure folder. Photos, video clips, logs of locations and times. The works. I downloaded all of it, made copies, backed it up on a flash drive, and put one in the glove box of my truck just in case. The prenup clause was clear. Infidelity meant she forfeited everything. Everything. And here she was, parading around town with some finance bro like I was already out of the picture. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to be smart. Calculated. She wanted to play games? Fine. I could play too. A few days later, she came home from one of her mysterious yoga retreats with an extra glow and a shopping bag from some luxury store I couldn't pronounce. I was in the kitchen making chili, pretending not to notice. She breezed past me, kissed my cheek, and said, "Smells amazing, babe." Babe. Like we hadn't talked about divorce. I smiled, stirred the pot. "You want some wine?" "Sure," she said, toeing off her shoes. We ate together, watched some Netflix, even laughed at a few scenes. She leaned her head on my shoulder at one point, and I almost pulled away. Almost. But I didn't. Because I needed her to keep thinking I was a fool. That she had the upper hand. That I was still that small-town mechanic with a soft heart and a blank checkbook. But inside, I was already building the endgame. Then came the betrayal I never saw coming. One morning, I got to the shop and found a city inspector waiting outside. "You Trevor Whitman?" he asked. "Yeah. What's this about?" "Anonymous complaint. Zoning violations. Safety code issues. We're doing a walkthrough." My stomach dropped. I followed him inside, showed him around, and watched as he took notes and pointed out things I'd already fixed years ago. "Gonna need to see the original permits," he said. "And your business license renewal form." It took me a few hours to pull all that together. Everything checked out, but he still slapped me with a warning and said he'd be back in a week. The next day, a health inspector showed up, then the fire marshal, then a labor board rep asking for employee documentation. It was like someone had flipped a switch and activated every bureaucratic nightmare possible. And the worst part? Every complaint was anonymous. Except I knew exactly who was behind it. I confronted Maya that night. Calm. Quiet. "Anyone in your family know someone at the city planning office?" I asked, setting down my fork. She blinked. "What?" "I've had 3 inspections in 3 days. All from anonymous tips. Kind of a coincidence, isn't it?" She shrugged. "Maybe someone doesn't like your chili." I stared at her. "You trying to burn me down before the ink's even dry?" She stood, arms crossed. "If you can't handle some pressure, maybe you shouldn't be running a business." That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Not with anger, not with grief, but with this cold, razor-sharp clarity. This wasn't just about divorce anymore. It was war, and I was done playing defense. I waited until she left for another one of her weekend wellness retreats, then sat down with a lawyer. Not the local guy who did my business taxes, a real shark. Someone Doug recommended. Her name was Elise Vargo, former prosecutor. Wore glasses she didn't need just to make people underestimate her. I gave her the file. She flipped through it like she was reading a menu. "She's cooked," Elise said. "And the prenup?" "Airtight. We'll hit her with everything." "And the business?" I asked. "We'll protect it, but you're going to need to be patient. We do this right. She walks away with nothing." I nodded. "Good. Because I'm done being the guy people walk over." And just like that, the revenge began to take shape. Slow. Surgical. Ruthless. But it wasn't until a week later, when Maya made a mistake that exposed everything, that the real game began. And that is where things took a turn I never expected. I wish I could tell you that once I lawyered up, everything clicked into place. That I walked away cool and collected while Maya scrambled to pick up the pieces. But real life doesn't move that fast. It's not a clean, sweeping victory with background music and a sudden credit roll. No, it was messier than that. Slower. And a whole lot harder before it got better. The real game began a week after my meeting with Elise, when Maya made a mistake that told me everything I needed to know. She came home from her retreat early. That was clue number one. She was flustered, dragging in a suitcase with one busted wheel, muttering to herself as she slammed it down in the hallway. Her phone rang the second she crossed the threshold, and I watched her duck into the laundry room to answer it. I could only catch snippets of the conversation, but it was enough. "No, I told you, he was supposed to be out of town. Just keep your mouth shut. He doesn't know anything." Of course I deleted it. I'm not stupid. She didn't see me watching from the hallway mirror, hidden by the reflection angle. When she finally emerged, her whole posture shifted the moment she spotted me in the kitchen. Back to performance mode. Smile. Flip of the hair. Kiss on the cheek like everything was normal. It was pathetic. I played along. Let her go upstairs to unpack. I didn't say a word. But that night, after she fell asleep, probably assuming she'd gaslit me into complacency, I snuck into the laundry room and checked the small trash bin under the sink. Wedged between a tissue and a used makeup wipe was a torn-up receipt from a boutique hotel near the lake, the same one Doug had mentioned in his report. Date stamped 2 nights ago. So much for deleting everything. I took a picture, bagged the receipt, and that was it. Her carelessness gave me the final piece. But even with all that evidence, things didn't get easier. The next few weeks, they were brutal. It was like I was living in 2 parallel worlds, one where I smiled through customer tune-ups and break checks during the day, and another where I was quietly watching my marriage implode every night at home. Maya was colder now. She barely spoke to me unless it was transactional. She started making snide little comments, like, "Enjoy this while it lasts," and "I hope you saved some of that lottery money." She had no idea I'd already moved most of it into a separate account under my LLC's name. Elise had helped with all that. She'd structured everything legally and airtight. But Maya didn't know, and I wasn't about to educate her. The shop started struggling. Not because of business, the clients still came. Word of mouth was strong, and my team was solid. But the city inspections kept rolling in. New complaints. More anonymous calls. Someone reported that our oil disposal unit was leaking. It wasn't. Then came a zoning board notice citing a permit technicality from 10 years ago. All of it designed to wear me down. Drain my time, my money, my energy. I knew who was behind it. Her father, most likely. Maybe with some strings pulled through old colleagues. It was a quiet siege, slow, subtle, designed to make me fold. And I'll admit it, I almost did. One morning, after my 3rd cup of black coffee and an entire night spent filing inspection responses and damage control emails, I stood alone in the break room of my shop and just broke. I leaned against the fridge, slid down to the floor, and sat there like a lost kid. I wasn't crying. I didn't even have the energy to cry. I just felt hollow, numb, like all the fight had drained out of me. I'd spent a decade building this life, this business, this marriage, and it was crumbling like dry plaster under my feet. That was my rock bottom. But funny thing about hitting the bottom, once you're there, there's nowhere left to fall, only forward. A few days later, something shifted. It didn't happen all at once. No big revelation, no dramatic speech in the mirror. Just a moment, sitting in my truck after closing up shop, watching the sunset paint the sky with fire. I remembered something my dad used to say when things got tough. If it's too heavy to carry, don't try to lift it all at once. Break it down, one piece at a time. That night, I wrote down a plan. Not for revenge. Not yet. For me. Step 1, secure the shop. Elise put me in touch with a business consultant who specialized in protection during contentious divorces. Together, we reviewed every contract, every license, every employee file. We restructured the business into a new LLC with a trust shield, transferred assets, and filed the paperwork so cleanly that even a team of lawyers would struggle to poke holes in it. All above board. All perfectly legal. Step 2, mental space. I moved out. Not far, just a rental on the edge of town with a view of the hills and a garage big enough to park my truck and keep a few tools. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. No pretending. No watching my soon-to-be ex walk around in silk robes like she was auditioning for a reality show. Just peace. When I told Maya I was leaving, she barely blinked. Guess I get the house in the meantime, she said with a smirk. Enjoy it, I replied. And I meant it. Because the house. It was a box with memories that already felt like they belonged to someone else. Step 3. Rebuild. I poured myself into the shop again, not just to keep it afloat, but to reinvent it. We launched a new marketing push. I upgraded our tools and diagnostic system. I gave raises to my guys, the ones who stuck by me without asking questions. I even started doing weekend workshops for teenagers who wanted to learn the basics of car repair. It gave me purpose, gave the shop new life. One of the kids, a quiet girl named Brielle, reminded me of me at that age. She didn't say much, but when she rebuilt her first alternator, the smile on her face lit up the whole room. I started looking forward to Saturdays again. Then came the interviews. Elise had a contact at a local paper who wrote a piece on small businesses surviving divorce battles. I didn't name names. I didn't throw Maya under the bus. I didn't need to. I just told my story, quietly, plainly. How I built something with my hands. How I nearly lost it. And how I was taking it back, piece by piece. The article blew up. Local radio stations called. Clients poured in. We went from scraping to thriving in a month. I didn't brag. I didn't gloat. But inside, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Pride. And then, just when I was starting to breathe again, the next twist came. It was a Wednesday morning. I was at the shop early, organizing invoices, when Elise called. She filed, she said. I froze. Filing what? She's officially filed for divorce. She's demanding 50% of all assets acquired during the marriage, including the shop, the lottery winnings, the truck, even the furniture. She knows about the prenup. Elise paused. She's claiming she never cheated. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Of course she is. She wants a formal mediation, Elise continued. And she's retained her father's firm. Which means this is going to get ugly. I exhaled slowly. Let her come. She's confident, Elise said carefully. Too confident. That worries me. Either she thinks we don't have enough to prove infidelity, or she's planning something. I didn't answer right away. My mind flashed to the receipt. The photos. The phone logs. But Elise was right. Maya had money, resources, and enough charm to play innocent if needed. She won't win, I said. Elise lowered her voice. Then we better be ready. The next week was a blur of paperwork, depositions, and prep meetings. Maya played the part of the wronged woman to perfection. Showed up in light makeup, modest heels, talking about emotional neglect and how I changed after the lottery. Her lawyer, a smug, silver-haired fox in an Italian suit, leaned into it, painting me as a stubborn, emotionally distant man who got lucky and left his wife behind. I stayed quiet. Let them talk. But when Elise opened her folder, slid the photos across the table, and dropped the time-stamped hotel receipts, the room charges, the surveillance stills, even a credit card bill with both their names on a spa day, the entire tone shifted. Maya's face drained of color. Her smile faltered. For a second, she looked right at me, and I saw it. Panic. Her lawyer tried to recover. Claimed the photos didn't prove anything. That the man could have been a friend. That the hotel receipts were circumstantial. Elise didn't even blink. Would the court like to see the text messages? We have copies. Maya turned sharply. What text messages? Her lawyer whispered something, but she wasn't listening anymore. Her posture collapsed in on itself. Her eyes darted. She realized, for the first time, that she'd miscalculated. But Elise didn't stop there. She outlined every clause of the prenup, walked them through the infidelity clause with the grace of a seasoned sniper. And then she pulled out the ace. A signed statement from Doug's contact, a hotel employee who confirmed Maya had requested the discreet entrance for repeat guests who prefer privacy. She'd used it 3 times. With the same man. The room went silent. Maya didn't speak. Her lawyer asked for a recess. They left the room, whispering furiously. And I sat there, calm, still, the same way she looked the night she told me she didn't need me anymore. Except now, the roles had flipped. And that was the moment I realized the fall was over. It was time to rise. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. And let me tell you something. The colder it gets, the clearer your mind becomes. After that mediation session, Maya knew the tide had turned. For the first time, she wasn't the one pulling strings. She wasn't the one with the smug smile or the condescending tone. She wasn't the puppet master, not anymore. And I wasn't the fool in overalls, wiping grease off my hands while she made plays behind my back. I was calm, patient, focused, because this was the part of the game where silence did the real damage. After her lawyer called for that recess and they stormed out of the room, Elise and I didn't say much. We didn't need to. She closed the folder like she was sealing a coffin and gave me a single nod. She's shaken, Elise said. But don't celebrate yet. She's the type to come back swinging. I nodded slowly. Let her. And I meant it. Over the next few days, Maya went quiet. Not completely. She was still living in our house, though I was long gone from it. But the flurry of emails from her lawyer slowed. The court filings became more cautious. Suddenly, she wasn't demanding the shop or the cars. She wanted amicable terms, fair division, peaceful resolution, as if none of this had been a targeted assault on everything I built. But it was too late for that, because now I had something I didn't have before, leverage, and I wasn't going to waste it. The truth is, I didn't just want to win in court. That would be too clean, too easy. I wanted something else, not spite, not cruelty, but understanding. I wanted Maya to feel the weight of what she'd tried to destroy, to face the people she dismissed, the sacrifices she mocked, the legacy she laughed at. So I started laying the groundwork. The first thing I did was secure my team. I gathered every employee, my 2 mechanics, my front desk guy, and my part-time assistant, and brought them into the back room for a meeting. I told them the truth. Not everything, but enough. There's going to be a lot of noise in the next few weeks, I said. People might ask questions. Papers might dig. And there might be rumors. But this shop, this crew, we don't fold. We hold each other up. Tony, my longest tenured guy, just grinned. Boss, we've seen you rebuild a transmission blindfolded. We're not going anywhere. I gave them all bonuses that week. Not out of guilt, out of gratitude. Because loyalty like that, it deserves to be repaid. Next, I reached out to Doug. He'd done his job, and done it well, but now I needed more. Not just proof. Strategy. I want to know everything, I told him. Not just Maya. Her parents. Their assets. Their connections. The legal firm. Everything. Doug raised an eyebrow. Going for the nuclear option? I want to see the whole board, I said. Every piece. Then I'll decide. It took him a week to compile the file. Maya's parents, as it turned out, had more skeletons than I expected. Her father's law firm was legitimate, but they were known for aggressive tactics, backdoor deals, and occasionally skating on the edge of legality. He'd settled a harassment case quietly 3 years ago. Nothing criminal, but it wouldn't look great in public records. Her mother? She'd borrowed money from her charities fund to float a remodeling project, repaid it before the books closed, but there was documentation. And Maya? She had debt. Not a lot. Not enough to ruin her. But it was there, credit cards, a cosmetic surgery bill, a quiet loan she'd taken from her father's firm, all buried beneath her image of control and perfection. More importantly, Greg, her little side project, wasn't just a fling. He was her exit plan. Doug tracked emails, found property searches. She'd been looking at condos 2 towns over, all in Greg's area. She was trying to move in silence. Start over. Build a new life with someone who didn't know the version of her who used to cry in front of my dad's old toolbox when she couldn't balance our first joint budget. That stung more than I expected. Not the betrayal. That was old news. But the erasure. Like I was just a stepping stone. But that was fine. Let her plan. Let her dream. Because I had plans of my own. And mine. Mine came with an audience. You see, during all this, the inspections, the lawyer meetings, the press, one thing had kept me grounded, my dad's legacy. The shop wasn't just a business. It was a symbol, a place he built with bare hands, calloused fingers, and honest sweat. When he passed it to me, he didn't give me a will or a vault full of money. He gave me purpose. So I decided to make it public. I called the local paper again, told them I wanted to do a feature, not on the divorce, not on the lottery, but on the anniversary of the shop, 30 years since my dad opened it. I framed it as a legacy piece, invited past customers, local officials, old friends. We set a date for a Saturday morning, set up food trucks, local radio. It was going to be a celebration. But for me, it was going to be something else. An opportunity, because I knew Maya would hear about it. I made sure she did. I casually mentioned it during a property mediation. Elise, don't forget, I'll need to reschedule the next meeting. The shop's hosting an event. 30 years, you know. Dad would have been proud. I didn't look at Maya when I said it, but I felt her shift in her chair. Event, she asked. I shrugged. Local thing. Press, community, friends of the shop. Nothing fancy. She didn't respond. But later that night, Doug texted me. She's asking around. Wants to know if she's invited. I smiled. Let her wonder. In the days leading up to the event, I tied up every loose end. Elise finalized the asset protection moves. Doug confirmed that Maya and Greg had argued. Apparently, Greg wasn't thrilled about being exposed in court. I heard she'd gone to stay with her parents for a few nights. Rumors were flying. Friends of hers started unfollowing her. The flawless image was cracking. Then, 3 days before the event, I did something bold. I sent her an invitation. Just a small white envelope. No return address. Inside was a formal card. Celebrating 30 years of Whitman Automotive. Honoring the legacy of James Whitman. Saturday, 10 a.m., community open house. All welcome. No signature. No message. Just the invite. And sure enough, she came. She showed up in a long beige coat, oversized sunglasses, and a perfectly neutral expression. Her mother was with her, dressed like she was attending a brunch for senators, not a mechanic's anniversary party. Her father didn't come. Probably smart. I watched them walk in from the back office. Watched her eyes scan the crowd, looking for someone. Me? Greg? Maybe both. I waited 10 minutes. Then I stepped outside, walked up the small stage we'd built with the help of the city council, and tapped the mic. Hey everyone, I said, voice steady. Thanks for coming. 30 years ago, my dad opened this place with nothing but a single toolbox and a heart bigger than his wallet. He taught me everything, not just about cars, but about people, about respect, integrity, work you can be proud of. So today, we're not just honoring a business. We're honoring him. There was applause. Some cheers. A couple of old customers whistled from the crowd. But I wasn't done. Some of you know I've had a rough year. I continued. Personal stuff. Divorce, legal fights. It's no secret. But I'm standing here today not because of luck or money, but because I never forgot where I came from. Because even when people tried to tear this place down, we stood our ground. More applause. Louder this time. I locked eyes with Maya. Her smile had vanished. I held up a small box, a gift we were giving to the first 100 guests. Inside was a limited edition keychain shaped like a wrench, with the words, "Built to last." My dad used to say the best machines are the ones that take a beating and keep running, I said. So to anyone who ever doubted this shop, or me, I just want to say, we're still here, and we're not going anywhere. The crowd erupted. And Maya? She turned and walked away. No goodbye, no speech, just a silent retreat, her mother scurrying after her like a chihuahua chasing a car. I stepped off the stage and let the celebration continue. But inside, I was already preparing the final move. Because that wasn't the end. That was just the setup. And the real revenge was coming next. After the anniversary event, Maya disappeared for a bit. Not literally, but socially. No posts. No updates. No wine and brunch selfies with her friends. No passive-aggressive memes about healing or starting new chapters. For a woman who used to treat Instagram like a confessional booth, her silence was louder than anything she could have said. But I didn't let my guard down. Because people like Maya don't just walk away. They recalculate, reshape, regroup. Sure enough, 3 days after the celebration, Elise called. She's asking to amend the divorce terms. I raised an eyebrow. How bad? She wants to drop her claims on the business. She's offering a clean split of the remaining assets, house, accounts, vehicles, but she wants a confidentiality clause. No public mention of the affair. No mention of the prenup. I stared at my laptop, then out the window of the shop. She's trying to save face. Elise didn't even need to respond. I already knew. Maya didn't want to win anymore. She just didn't want to lose publicly. But this wasn't about the public. Not for me. Not anymore. It was about making sure the people who thought they could play God with other people's lives, who thought they could stomp on loyalty and still walk away clean, finally faced a consequence they couldn't talk their way out of. Elise, I said, decline her offer. You sure? I'm sure. I want full execution of the prenup. She gets nothing. Not a penny. And no confidentiality clause. A pause. Understood. And with that, we moved forward. The court date was set. I didn't tell anyone. Not the guys at the shop, not my friends, not even my mom. I didn't want distractions. I didn't want drama. I just wanted it done. The courtroom wasn't packed. just the essentials. Me, Elise, Maya, her lawyer, and a judge who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. But the air was thick with unspoken things. Maya walked in wearing a navy blue pantsuit that probably cost more than my first car, her hair pulled into a sleek bun, makeup perfect, posture sharp, image intact. But under all that polish, I could see the tension in her shoulders, the fear behind the gloss. Elise stood, presented the case. Methodical, precise. She didn't belittle Maya, didn't rant, just laid out the facts, the prenup, the clause, the evidence, the dates, the infidelity. She referenced case law, precedent, and financial disclosure timelines. She presented it all so cleanly that even Maya's lawyer didn't object. Then Maya took the stand. I didn't expect a confession. I didn't expect an apology. But what I got was desperation. She tried to pivot, claimed the relationship with Greg didn't begin until after our separation talks, claimed emotional neglect, claimed she'd only agreed to the prenup under familial pressure. Her voice trembled, just a little, but enough to notice. Her lawyer looked like he was trying to melt into his chair. Elise stood calmly when it was her turn. Mrs. Whitman, she said, can you confirm this is your signature on the prenup? Yes. And this clause here, you read it before signing? Yes. And these photos, these receipts, these time-stamped messages, you're saying all of them occurred after the marriage was emotionally over, but before it was legally dissolved? Maya hesitated. Yes. Emotionally, it was. Did you tell your husband you were seeing someone else? No. Did you attempt to hide it? Maya didn't answer. Thank you, Elise said, and sat back down. The judge took an hour to review. It felt like a week. When she came back, her decision was blunt. Per the legally binding prenuptial agreement signed by both parties, and based on the provided evidence of infidelity, the court rules in favor of the petitioner. The respondent forfeits all claim to shared marital assets, including business holdings, property, and lottery earnings. Maya flinched, just a twitch. Then came the final nail. Furthermore, the court sees no cause for a confidentiality clause. This matter will remain public record. It was over. I didn't look at her when we left. She didn't look at me, but her mother was waiting outside the courtroom. When Maya stepped into the hallway, her mother stood, took one look at her, and whispered, not loud, but loud enough, you should have listened to him. Then she turned and walked away. I don't think I'll ever forget the look on Maya's face in that moment. Not rage, not sadness, just nothing, like everything had gone silent inside her. I thought that would be the end, but there was one more card to play. See, revenge isn't just about what you take. Sometimes, it's about what you give back. The day after the ruling, I called Greg. Doug had dug up his number months ago. I never used it, never had a reason. But now I wanted to see something. He answered on the third ring. Hello, Greg. This is Trevor Whitman. A pause. What do you want? I just wanted to say thank you. For what? For making my divorce easier. Silence. I don't. You will, I said. Check the court filings. They're public. Click. I don't know what he did after that. Maybe he ran. Maybe he ghosted her. Maybe he stuck around out of guilt. But I never heard about him again. Maya moved out of the house a week later. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't care. I kept the house, not because I wanted it, but because I earned it. I donated most of her furniture, gave the guest room to my godson for weekend visits, turned the office into a music room, bought a cheap used piano off Facebook Marketplace, and started learning to play. I was awful, but it didn't matter. It was mine. The shop kept growing. I brought on 2 more employees, expanded to a second location with Elise's help, and started offering trade workshops twice a month. One of my students, Brielle, got a scholarship to an engineering program. I wrote her recommendation letter myself. The lottery money? I barely touched it. Most of it went into an investment trust under my mom's name and a fund for community development projects. We opened a free car care clinic for single parents and veterans. No fanfare, no plaques, just real help for real people. One afternoon, about 3 months after the ruling, I found myself back on the porch of the shop, drinking iced tea with Tony. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the pavement, and the smell of oil and rubber hung in the air. You ever think you'd be here? He asked. I took a sip and smiled. No, I said, but I'm glad I am. He nodded. Hell of a thing, what she tried to pull. Yeah, I said, but it's done. And it was. The thing about revenge is, it's not about destruction. Not really. It's about restoration. Reclaiming what was taken. Finding your footing. Standing tall again. Not because you crushed your enemies, but because you remembered who you were before they tried to bury you. Maya tried to burn everything down. I rebuilt from the ashes. And I made sure the world knew who started the fire. I didn't just survive the storm. I built my shop out of its wreckage.